Learning progressions are important for the teaching and learning of 21st century skills. Countries around the world are recognizing the need to equip students with a broad range of skills such as collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, so that they could be prepared to succeed not only in school, but in work and in life. One of the challenges that face these countries is how do we translate these aspirations into practice? So in other words, how do we go about developing and teaching these skills to our students? And if the goal is to teach the skills, identifying which skills and competencies are important is only the beginning. I think what we need to do is go beyond just saying, we want students to be good collaborators, we want them to be good problem solvers, to start talking more deeply about what do we mean when we say collaboration? What do we mean when we say problem solving? What does that actually look like? What behaviors are part of it? And what are the building blocks that are part of these skills? How do these skills develop and change over time? So I think these are the kinds of questions we need to start asking when we're talking about 21st century skills. We all know that learning tends to follow a unexpected path or progression. I think progression is where more complex skills are built upon more foundational skills. I think one of the biggest barriers to providing learning opportunities for students to learn these 21st century skills is that we actually don't know very much about the nature of these skills. We don't have a good grasp of the typical development of these 21st century skills. And I think this is where learning progressions play a really critical role. So I think learning progressions go beyond just describing what the skills are to actually identifying the kinds of skills, the kinds of knowledge and understanding that describe sort of a typical path of how these are gained over time. So it describes development of a skill from more basic to more complex forms, the actual building blocks that it takes to develop these skills over time. And I think that without a good understanding at this level of the skills, how are we going to even begin to approach teaching it? Because in order to teach it, teachers need more than just a description of the skills. Teachers need to actually know how they develop, how these skills progress, so that if I see a student in my classroom, just by observing that student, by looking at their behavioral indicators that the student is exhibiting, we can identify where that student is currently in that progression, where we want them to go next, so that the teacher can provide the necessary scaffolds to get the student there. So I think that these learning progressions can act as a roadmap for teachers for informing their instruction, so that by having a better understanding of how these skills develop, they can target their instruction so that individual students can be better met in terms of their development in these skills.